Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John's Reporters for the 10th of March. Well, things played out fairly closely to what we were talking about in yesterday's video, where once the magenta moved over the white NBI right here, we were expecting the potential of up move along with orange here, continuing its dip on the DOC. Those were all positives. We had short-term buyers prepping up, and a lot of this was the extreme nature of oversold into negative situations, and it wasn't going to take much of a positive anything to spark a turnaround, because when you had so many people biased one direction, at these opportunities to force covering on that setup with some buy, and they started it in the pre-market where it was really easy to do, and that just fueled it as soon as things opened up, and it just continued from there. So that was pretty clean. NQ, NASDAQ, identical, and actually with the magenta over yellow, even stronger, and a dip below the 7.5 we look for bullish setups. In fact, that was now stuff to pass over the 23%. Nothing really changed. Yes, they agreed to talk about settlement for the Ukraine, but that's not going to solve any of the oil or other issues with the embargoes and limitations on food, fertilizers. Nickel market's still closed. There's some broad shocks out there. Oil, of course, major pullback. Of course, not surprising, because we've got all these positive extremes. They need to be filled. It was just a matter of waiting for that signal that justified that turnaround. And once we saw the up move here, it was just a matter of waiting for that breakdown. And it started early on in the day and really never abated. Again, nothing has changed on the supply side of oil or that, and no indication whether or not Russia will turn off the spigot. There really isn't a new available supply, because all of the OPEC and other leaders have declined. So while you see these kind of major moves, there's really nothing changed in it, except for people heavily positioned in one direction and got flipped around. Even gold pulling back, of course, also positive extremes, going all the way back to 1830 range. And Euro took a big bounce, because it's exciting that they're going to throw even more borrowed euros, which means at least they're not going to go bankrupt yet. They're just going to borrow the money to pay off the money they owe and reissue it. That's the power of central banks. Gotta love that ability. And yields rising. It was a real bad auction, which raised rates even further, and we would expect these lows to be taken out. That was sort of a given with the direction things are going. And, you know, every day that oil remains at these elevated levels, finally gets some easing from acceleration at the pumps, price-wise, but it doesn't change the systemic effect over time as far as costs having to rise. Bitcoin had turned around on the buy side right over here. It was right around the 38, almost 39 range. Buy setups came in, and that sold it. So it went from the 39 to sell, it's right here, 41.9. So it was a pretty nice move. And again, one bar, and being this was a 60-minute chart, that literally, if you look at it there, 600 coin made that entire move. So that's pretty crazy when you can have that. This is where, like Ethereum here, trades much bigger volume, and that buy setup that took place, nice move, very clean. Beautiful within our chart setups. In fact, positive extremes have filled all the way back to right here. You still have all the way back to the 26, 25 range. Worth marking that, keep a note of it. 50K standpoint, in the short here, there's plenty of opportunity for that to cover, and it's part of some of the adjustments I've been working on with the algo strategy. And hopefully we'll get those finalized so that because that was an easy way to see the turnaround move with magenta as well as blue over the orange, and then of course that orange dip on the DOC. All those things aligning to that flip around. Program did end up getting at the 4207 range, so capturing the bulk of that turnaround space. Intraday, this is where we ended the day on positive turnaround. That continued, kind of fluctuated a little bit, but once it popped up right here, that was the beginning of it, and filled back up all through these previous algo levels, which you kind of supported on in between. And then as the sell signals did come through, they still produced plenty of moves to the downside. So there was, despite the fact being up 100 plus, it was still trading back down and then buying back up again. And there was just plenty of that. And once you've got that position locked in, it really is a squeeze. And so all the little fade backs is just opportunity for shorts to cover any little dip that's going back in there, pushing it back up, and there was some brief selling towards the end of the day, and that's where it was currently left. So all in all, not a surprise. I'll be looking at the daily 23% as a marker, because got to get over that, and or if there's any potentially positive or negative news can certainly impact. But this was clearly one of those situations where we could see from yesterday that there was a turnaround of buying taking place just to overtake the one directional trade, which was all negative before. At a certain point, when you're betting on the end of the world, you got nothing to lose by going with the opposite side of that trade. It's just a matter of picking win and going with it. And that's why I was glad that we were prepared for these kind of potentials within the broader short. Even in 2008, within the big sell-offs, we would have massive up days before the overall trend still continued the same direction. It's just a matter of time before earnings adjustments are made to reflect the continued squeeze that's taking place with price and that, and still uncertain as how much it will affect the demand side from the U.S. as well as the world, and whether or not that's going to push things towards recession. Those are the unknowns that are definable in a sense, and that gives us the ability to recognize that there's going to be some counter trade to overall direction, and it's just a matter of being flexible to go with it. And in this kind of increased volatility, that flexibility is very profitable. So keep at it, follow the signals as they come in, and as always, trade well, and I will update you on the Skype chat with relevant details. Have a good one.